This broadcast is a re-upload. So what had happened was the first upload, for whatever stupid fucking reason, did not save to my computer. So, for those of you listening for the first time, I do apologize that it took me longer than usual. This has been bothering me all day. My feet hurt, my back hurt, everything practically frickin' hurts. There was a few problems with that last episode anyway, so I guess I'll just go ahead and get that one straight out of the way, rather than saying straight out of Compton. Okay, so number one problem with the pay-per-view that we're going to be looking at, the WrestleMania Backlash pay-per-view that took place on May 3rd, 2022, the number one problem that I see is the rearranging of the matches, because the matches should have been rearranged in a different way. Last time I took 20 minutes on the last episode that didn't get uploaded, unfortunately. I took 20 minutes and I talked about that. I talked about how I would rearrange the card and put this match over here and this match right here and that match right there. And you know what? It's useless bullshit. I'm not going to talk about that, even though it feels 20 minutes, I guess. The next thing that I wanted to talk about was the fact that most of these matches were nothing more than WrestleMania rematches, which, in the grand scheme of things, it's been 3 weeks since WrestleMania, if not almost 4 weeks since WrestleMania. Why in the fuck are we having these WrestleMania rematches? It makes no sense, and storytelling-wise, it almost adds nothing to the direct story of everything else. The next thing that I talked about in the last episode, not in the last episode rather, but in the episode that didn't get any sort of credibility, because you will not be hearing that one. For whatever reason, my computer decided not to save it. Had that been the case, though, hopefully you can hear me loud and clear as I say this. A 40-minute main event. It didn't need to be 40 minutes. And for that matter, only to have a disappointing... I shouldn't say disappointing, because it ended to make Roman Reigns look like the strongest person in the ring, because he pinned Matt Riddle. And him pinning Matt Riddle, because Matt Riddle is a nobody in the grand scheme of things. He's just like, you know, a partner to Randy Orton. That's about it. Randy Orton is a multi-time world champion. Randy Orton is a third generation superstar. You know, if he were to pin Randy Orton, it would actually give some validity to Roman Reigns. It would actually fluff his resume in a little bit, but at the same time, it would also be like, hey, Randy, what's happening to you lately? You know, you lost to Roman Reigns last week. Kind of like that. And of course, they wouldn't have Roman actually pin Drew McIntyre, because if they were to do that, then that would give you the implication that Roman is actually a threat to Drew McIntyre, when in fact what they want you to believe is that Drew McIntyre is a threat to Roman Reigns, because Roman has both championships at this time. He just recently won the WWE Championship, and he's been the Universal Champion for, according to Michael Cole and according to this website that I just pulled up, 617 days and counting. However, that's our main event. The next thing that I wanted to get out of the way before we started this broadcast was the fact that one of the matches on here, and we'll talk about it a little bit more once we get there, AJ Styles versus Edge. Corey Graves is uneducated about what the Luciferian means, calling it what the media calls it. So in the 1970s, for those of you who don't know, there was something called the Satanic Panic. However, this was perpetuated by the media, stereotyping people who have or who were performing satanic rituals at that time, and these satanic rituals were nothing more than them expressing their belief system. It really had nothing to do with like they weren't like drinking the blood of the lamb, or they weren't like pillaging villages, or they weren't like killing people, stealing souls, digging graves and putting people in them. They weren't sucking the blood from the healthy, the wealthy, and the holy. You know, what they were doing was something along the lines of practicing their own religious beliefs, which at the time they were told that they could have. But the media perpetuated it as though that they were burning crosses on people's lawns, and as though that they were setting fire to pentagrams and semicircles in the sand for whatever reason. And that gives people like me a bad name, because people prefer to believe the media over a person who practices that art. And for those of you who don't know, I am borderline Satanist, and I am also someone who practices witchcraft. So try not to give me a bad name. Try not to look at me in a different light simply because you think you're using your big head now. You think that I'm some sort of demon, and you're going to demonize me for it. Corey Graves made 2 alliterations to the fact that Edge is some Satanist, and that's a bad thing. Let me tell you what bad and good are. They're subjective. Hitler thought that he was doing something good for the world, and for that matter, he had his own motives. That's what we're going to talk about, the motive. What's the motive? Because AJ lost at WrestleMania. Because AJ you want to know what the whole story behind AJ versus Edge was? Edge started it whenever he came out, and then he said that he wanted someone to give him one last adrenaline rush. He said that he wanted someone who could match him in the performance, at the performance, level that he's been known to perform at, so to speak. He wanted someone to basically give him a 5-star hoorah of a match, and AJ Styles answered that. So, like I said, good and bad are completely subjective. This storyline began with a guy who's relatively good in the ring, if not better than what he used to be, and who's respectable and is a 5-star athlete. Or for that matter, you could look at this match and say they're both 5-star athletes. It's great to see that Edge and AJ Styles respect each other. It's a beautiful performance whenever it gets put together, because they're both great high flyers who deserve the absolute utmost respect whenever it comes to professional wrestling. AJ Styles and Edge, their WrestleMania match, from what I'm told, was an amazing performance of a match. It was beautiful, from what I'm told. I haven't even looked up highlights of it. Like I said, I'm not watching WrestleMania. It's too long. Another problem, and like I said, I really didn't want to make this a 20-minute ramble. It's good that it's almost 10 minutes. Another problem that I had with this pay-per-view is the fact that, let me tell you who's left off the card. Alexa Bliss, Sasha Banks, practically practically their entire women's roster. I'll just go out and say it. And I was mad because there's only one women's match here that I can think of off the top of my head. WWE 24/7 champion Dana Brooke is left off of, and I guess championship matches don't mean shit to them. WWE Women's Tag Team Championship matches, Sasha Banks and Naomi are left off, which is 2/3 of the team known collectively as bad. So I'm looking through the list. I don't mean to be quiet right now, but I'm passing up the NXT champions right now. Just a list of people, because I'm not in the loop. I don't have cable television. I can't tell you on a week-to-week basis who is your champion, and none of them, for that matter, are standing out to me to say, hey, you know, it's been how many times have you been tuning in to see on TV? You know, had I been watching it on a week-to-week basis, then I'd be able to tell you who your champions are. But unfortunately, I only know who the tag team and the Raw tag team champions are. The tag team titles for SmackDown go to the Usos, Jimmy and Jay, who the Usos won the SmackDown Tag Team Championships from the Mysterios at the pre-show and the Money in the Bank pay-per-view on July 18th, 2021. And we didn't cover that because our... How do I say this? The podcast wasn't born until October of 2021. This makes their 5th title reign, and they've so far held it for 296 days. But once again, even though they're on the card, this is not a championship match, which kind of sucks. The Intercontinental Champion, Ricochet, this is his first championship reign. He's had it 67 plus days. The last 3 women's champions have been Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, Bianca Belair, Sasha Banks. Well, they said the last 3, but they listed 4. And Ronda Rousey, SmackDown Women's Champion. But I mean, that title was defended, so we'll get to that whenever we get to that. No, I don't mean to spoil it or anything. Universal Champion Roman Reigns. He shows up on the card, but once again, that's not a championship match. Raw Tag Team Champions, RK Bro, Riddle, and Randy Orton. Once again, not a championship match. United States Champion Austin Theory. He's been the champion for a little over a month. 22 plus days whenever he defeated Finn Balor on WWE Raw April 18th. So he's the United States champion, but once again, he doesn't have to defend his title. Raw Women's Champion Bianca Belair doesn't have to defend her title. WWE Champion Roman Reigns, like I said, Roman Reigns doesn't have to defend his title. Neither one of his championships. I mean, he's a double champion and he doesn't have to defend his title. Also, at WrestleMania, they did not have unless it was on a pre-show that I didn't hear about or I didn't watch, which I didn't watch WrestleMania, just so you know. They did not defend the United States Championship. They did not defend the Intercontinental Championship. You want to know what they did do, though? What they did do was they had Sami Zayn in a match against Johnny Knoxville, and they had Kevin Owens in a match against Steve Austin. No disrespect to Steve Austin, but he hasn't been relevant since 2004. No disrespect to Johnny Knoxville, but he hasn't been relevant since 1992. My point, of course, is that if you would focus less on celebrities and less on... If you would focus more on the champions that you have and the championships that you're trying to build, because to be honest, and I don't know why I said to be honest, yeah, I'm just going to sit out here and lie, Like, let's not be honest. Let's go ahead and lie right now. Scrap the whole to be honest. Here's the lie. On Walmart Radio, they play a game called Spy the Lie. I don't know why, and that wasn't supposed to rhyme. Anyway, holy crap, we haven't even started. It's baffling to me that they can call themselves a wrestling company when in fact they want to be an entertainment company. If they want to be an entertainment company, may as well just sell the ring ropes right now. Sell the ring, sell all the arenas, and sell the deals to AEW, who's the real wrestling company if you think about it. And go to Hollywood and make your damn movies. It wouldn't hurt my feelings one bit if Peacock pulled WWE from their product, because Peacock's got some interesting content, but I certainly wouldn't change this podcast into the Unsolved Mysteries podcast just so that I could once a week come over here and then be like, and nobody's seen the little girl ever again. If you have any information on this case or any of the ones that we've talked about here tonight, please call the number 1-800-UNSOLVED-MYSTERIES. I would not be doing that. I would still have content to go off of thanks to AEW, thanks to Impact Wrestling, thanks to NJPW, which is New Japan Pro Wrestling, thanks to junior divisions of professional wrestling, thanks to Ring of Honor, who just got bought out by AEW and all of their championships, which brings in a new division, thanks to Lucha Underground, PCW, CZW, ECW. Well, ECW's library is now owned by WWE, but I'm sure that Paul Heyman, if WWE were to go under, would be like, hey, why don't I do that again? I've been making all this WWE money. Why don't I put it to good use now that Vince McMahon, my biggest competition, is no longer here? Okay, now we're a little bit under 20 minutes. I am so sorry about that rant. This is now becoming a different rant than the one that I'd previously talked about in this broadcast. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the Gut Wrench Podcast. We're talking about a pay-per-view that happened Sunday, 5, which is May 3rd of 2022. Thank you so much for joining me, and hopefully this one gets saved to my computer and doesn't cuck me. Rollins says he lost because he was caught off guard by a surprise debut at WrestleMania. That's not true. It was announced. I almost couldn't read that. Over the internet. It was announced over Twitter 3 or 4 weeks before it happened. And Rollins kept playing to the crowd, too. So whenever he lost his WrestleMania match, that was his fault. It had nothing to do with the fact that, I'm just a scared little boy who didn't know who his opponent was and didn't know how to prepare for such an unknown person. If someone would have came out in a mask and he wouldn't have known who it was, in other words, and they would have been Lucha Wrestling, and he couldn't figure out who it was. He would be too focused on who it is, like Christopher Daniels said. Maybe if you would stop fixating on who's under the mask, you would still have your championship. Whenever he was talking about suicide, that's on the Impact Wrestling episode that we talked about, which, by the way, this episode, before I knew that there was a pay-per-view from WWE, this episode was supposed to be about the Slammiversary, and I don't know what year it is that I was going to talk about originally, but the Slammiversary where AJ Styles faced off against Bully Ray. But I had to scrap those plans really fast whenever I found out last minute that WWE was holding a pay-per-view. And then I was like, that's interesting. Well, I didn't pay for Peacock for nothing. So, there we go. I'm just going to plug the Peacock right now. Despite my fascination for birds with colorful wings, Seth Rollins versus Cody Rhodes. Rollins talks over 80% of the feud. So it's almost like Cody Rhodes can't get a line in edgewise, because no matter how many times that Cody Rhodes tries to, Rollins is either talking over top of him, or maybe it was just the way that the hype package was put together, where Seth frickin' Rollins, Jimmy Smith, won't shut up saying frickin' every 36 times. He sounds like frickin' Peter Griffin, am I right? Lois. And honestly, there's no real reason for this rivalry to exist. The rivalry almost seems like it came about the night after WrestleMania, whenever Cody Rhodes practically said that he wanted to do the one thing that his dad never got to do, and that's win the WWE Championship. And in case you don't know, our WWE Champion at this time, he just won the title, but 20-some days ago, as of this recording and as of this date, 5/3/22, at that pay-per-view that we're talking about. Cody Rhodes said that he wanted to go after the WWE Championship, and he's going to have to go through Roman Reigns. Reigns already has his hands full, and so does the Bloodline collectively with RK Bro, which we'll get to in just a moment. Seth Rollins versus Cody Rhodes, and there's no real reason for this rivalry to exist. Like I said, it almost comes out as though that they were trying to fill a spot, and then they were like, okay, so you're going to interrupt him during his segment wherever he's out in the ring and he's talking about the prestige of the WWE Championship and how his father never got to win it, and how it hurt his feelings that his dad never really got to win the WWE Championship. For me, growing up, I would always hear that Dusty Rhodes was like one of the greats, and I'm going to step on a lot of toes whenever I say this, but I said this in the first broadcast that didn't get published, but I'm going to say it here too. To me, Dusty Rhodes came off as a clown. He would dress up in these polka dots, and he would just do the hand jive, and he would do the rooster walk, and he would always come out, and then he would, let me tell you something, sweetie. Here's how things are going to go. I'm going to get in the ring. I'm going to get in there with Ric Flair, and we're going to dance all night until the sun goes down. And then after that, we're going to dance some more. That's not... Yeah, but Dusty, I was asking you, how do you plan on winning the WWE title? It don't matter, sweetie. I know all of Ric Flair's moves. I know what he's going to do. He's going to try to chop me. And whenever he tries to chop me, I'm going to poke him in the eye. Dusty Rhodes came off almost like a crippled man who tried to audition for Dancing with the Stars, but failed. And nobody gave him sympathy, so he decided to wrestle. I didn't say that in the original broadcast. I had something that wasn't even too funny. The reason for the rivalry should not exist. And they try so hard. They try so hard to replace Justin Roberts. Justin Roberts is their former ring announcer, and I don't know who they got to try to replace him, but... Okay, so it's basically like you go into the store and you're looking for Reese cups, but you can't find Reese cups. So instead you buy the store brand Nutty Cups. So you go home, you try out the Nutty Cups, and maybe the Nutty Cups are good, but they're not exactly, Reese's Puffs. The hell, they're not even Reese's Pieces, for that matter. They're barely the cereal that you wanted, Or instead of trying Captain Crunch, you get Captain Ain't So Crunch, because there's no crunch there. And that's what they tried to do here. Whenever Justin Roberts says Cody Rhodes' name, the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes. But whenever this guy says Cody's name, he doesn't exactly have the oomph in his voice. And you can tell because he gets gassed whenever he's trying to say the American Nightmare and hold it. But Justin Roberts has it on point. Whenever Justin Roberts worked for the WWE. Or, for that matter, whenever Cody Rhodes worked for AEW. And here's something else that I never understood. Just to go ahead and get it out of the way, the same fucking people who booed Cody Rhodes, despite the fact that he would put on hell of a performance every fucking time that you would see him in the goddamn ring, the same fucking people who booed him then are cheering him now that he's in the WWE. It don't matter what fucking company he's in, he's still a 5-star performer. I mean, he even picked up a microphone in one of the live events over in AEW, and he said, "I love you," to all of his, who he was assuming was his fans, and he got booed out the building. Despite the fact that he jumped off of a 7-foot cage. Okay. Alright. I tried to go on Twitter and defend Cody Rhodes whenever that happened, and some guy ended up telling me that Cody's always going to be a mid-carder in his views, and I don't understand why this is the opening contest. It's a great match. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. I'm going to have to move on. It's almost 30 minutes in, and I have yet to get to everything else. 2 weeks prior, we had an arm wrestling competition in WWE. So 2 weeks prior, before this event happened, we had an arm wrestling match between Omos, a 7'2", 405 pounds of a man, versus Bobby Lashley, a former military, like his dad was in the military, and he decided to go to the military, and after he was a drill sergeant in the military, he came to WWE to start his career in like 2005 rather, and he dominated through the years of 2005 to 2008. Early 2009, he decided to quit. He came back, but he didn't come back to WWE. He came to Impact Wrestling in like 2010 to like 2014 maybe. And then after that, he came back to WWE in like 2017, and he's been here ever since. I could be missing a few details here and there, give or take a few years, because I know that it wasn't 2016 at the time I was looking for a job, and I don't remember seeing Bobby Lashley at all, or I know for sure that it wasn't 2016. Whenever he came back to WWE, it must have been like recent, like 2018, 2019, somewhere around there. Anyway, his mentor, manager, whatever you want to call, MVP, decided that it was a great idea to turn on Bobby Lashley, and for whatever reason, Omos is who he went with as his replacement. They had an arm wrestling competition, and I've seen ones like this before, like the arm wrestling competitions. It brings up like Goldberg and Mark Henry. Like, I've seen them in an arm wrestling competition before. I'm pretty sure that they've had a few more, like Scott Steiner, I think, and Triple H. Those are just a few that I can recall off the top of my head. But their budget for, like, entrances went directly to Bobby Lashley. Because Bobby Lashley gets all this pyro, he gets all this atmosphere, you know, and Omos doesn't get any of it. Omos just gets, hey, your music's hit, so get to the ring. He gets to the wrestling ring, and then he waits for Bobby Lashley, who gets the pyro, who gets the screen effects, he gets the lightning that shows up at like the entranceway. He gets the bass in his music. You can barely hear anything that Omos's music says. Next, we come to AJ Styles versus Edge, and we went over this briefly, but AJ Styles versus Edge is a poor man's WrestleMania match of what it was. The big caveat was the fact that Edge's Judgment Day, I don't want to say opponent, Edge's Judgment Day tag team partner was not at ringside because AJ had beaten him, but he ends up showing up anyway to cost AJ the match, along with a hooded figure who we find out is Rhea Ripley. And Corey Graves, once again, is very uneducated about what the meaning of the word Luciferian means. But he perpetuates it as though that it's something that it's not. And, you know, for me, that kind of rubs me the wrong way. Makes me mad. AJ says that he wanted to prove himself to Edge, and I thought that maybe that was his motive, as we've talked about before. Motive, the concept of good and evil in this world, is non-existent. It's motive that what drives people to do what they do. However they do it, and to whom or to what degree that they do it to. So whether that's and like I said, it's subjective, a good reason or a bad reason is up to the person it's actually up to them, not really the person who's looking at them from the inside or the outside. Because AJ lost at WrestleMania. So there's basically two motives. Edge says he wants this match because AJ lost at WrestleMania, and AJ wanted to prove himself to Edge, which both, like, the motives don't line up. If one person had one motive and another person had another motive, you know, take a shot every time I say the word motive. But it's basically the driving force of a story, and this is just poor storytelling. The wrestling itself, though, is 3 out of 5 stars. It's honestly a beautiful match, but just bogged down by too much bad storytelling, and for that matter, really bad storytelling. Next on the card, we have an I Quit match. Charlotte Flair faces off against Ronda Rousey for the SmackDown Women's Championship. And honestly, this was the greatest, the best match of the night. As far as professional wrestling goes and as far as storytelling goes as well. Charlotte versus Ronda Rousey. And one of the funniest parts of the match is before the match begins, whenever JoJo not on commentary, holy crap, JoJo on the ring when ring announcing, she says, the object of the match is to get your opponent to actually, quote, actually say the words, I quit. As if you could actually, figuratively, say the words, I quit. Sorry. I got a cat that wants to meow every time that I talk. Which wasn't in the original broadcast, by the way. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars because I don't understand what they mean by... Oh, shit. I don't understand what they mean by actually say the word I quit. The funny part about this match, and it's not so funny now that I know that Charlotte's possibly not coming back to wrestling because Ronda broke her arm. The funny part about this match was the fact that, well, it's not funny anymore, but it was whenever I didn't know that Charlotte's arm was broke. For some reason, Charlotte put a chair in the ring and she sets it up almost like she's planning something. She puts this chair up, and whenever she does, she looks at Ronda, who's on the ground, and then she says, hey, Ronda, Happy Mother's Day. And then the crowd just starts booing, just like, oh, the disrespect. Almost like, oh my God, how dare her disrespect her on Mother's Day. I don't know whether or not this was Mother's Day or not, but, you know, it might have been close to Mother's Day. What was it, last Sunday Mother's Day was? And like I said, I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The ref at WrestleMania was okay, so for their WrestleMania match, Ronda Rousey and Charlotte Flair, the ref at WrestleMania was Charles Robinson, who some of you might know as Little Flair. Charlotte calling the champion her baby, but Tommaso Ciampa did it first, though. In order to become champion... Okay, so Michael Cole messed up on commentary at the beginning of the match, before the match even began. Michael Cole says that in order to become champion, you must utter the words, I quit. So, Michael, if it's that easy to become the champion, I would walk into the ring, say the words, I quit, and walk out with the title. Because quitters get championships now, according to you and your WWE logic. And if that's the case, then I'd be walking out with all of the championships, because it's the easiest thing in the world to do, to just quit. I can't tell you the number of times that I've wanted to quit my job, but unfortunately, I can't do that. Or fortunately, depending upon how you look at it. Madcap Moss versus Happy Corbin, and I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. Happy Corbin mad because he lost at WrestleMania, and he blames Madcap Moss for the loss. And during the match, you see a guy wearing a Hook t-shirt. So, AEW, here's your cheap pop. You know? because Hook is one of wrestling's top stars, but he's not in WWE. He's in AEW. He's in another wrestling company making a name for himself, and for that matter, he's doing a damn good job of it. They build him as though that he actually is a threat, and most of his matches are done in under like 3.5 or 5.5 minutes. So much so that even the main event guys are not wanting to go up against him in order to tarnish his name, or for that matter, in order to not get destroyed, because whenever you're on camera with him, you kind of end up getting your neck broke. He hasn't broken anyone's neck yet that I'm aware of, but even though he's very safe in the ring, he's a small dude, but he's got explosive power. Nonetheless, Hook is on a whole nother show, and they just happen to glance past him for like all of 12 or 13 seconds. This guy wearing this t-shirt that says Hook on it. So, Happy Corbin lost to Drew McIntyre, which is the next match that we're going to be talking about, featuring Drew McIntyre. Speaking of which, Drew McIntyre comes out with a sword, and he named his sword, his claymore, after his mother, and her name was Angela. I'm not sure whether that's supposed to be symbolism or, it could be some twisted form of symbolism, because they do call Drew McIntyre the Scottish psychopath. So maybe only a psychopath would name a sword after their mother. But honestly, it sounds like... And by the way, his mom's dead, so that brings even more to the theory that I'm about to use. The theory that I'm about to go with is the fact that it's a Norman Bates situation, maybe Drew McIntyre has problems with his mom or something of that nature. At this point, this right here, the show that I'm reviewing, is nothing more than a self-fulfilling prophecy. Lashley versus Omos, honestly, surprised me. I only gave it 2 out of 5 stars, but Omos ends up winning. I can see why, because they're trying to put him over. They're trying to be like, hey, he can dominate Bobby Lashley, who's a former champion. And, he can do all these things and all that. But Madcap Moss, I forgot to mention, won his match at WrestleMania, but Happy Corbin lost his match at WrestleMania, and Happy Corbin blames Madcap Moss for his loss at WrestleMania. 617 days of being Universal Champion. So that brings us to our main event. And that is a 6-man tag team match. Why is the main event a 6-man tag team match? Once again, that's neither here nor there, I guess, because that's what they planned on doing with it. The concept of WWE championships means nothing. Once again, if WWE wants to be an entertainment company, by all means, sell your ring ropes, and I say have fun being WWE films. Even though that would make no sense. World Wrestling Entertainment films and fucking books and everything else for that matter. I mean, they sell a bunch of books. They sell a bunch of merchandise. They sell a shit ton of stuff of that nature. And if that's all that they want to do is sell you something, then they could very well be a film company of some sort if their main product is to be entertainment and not wrestling, because that's what they're treating their product like, as though that, hey, no matter what we do, we're going to sell tickets. No, you stupid motherfucker. Eventually, your crowd, your fan base is going to start levitating toward a different product because they notice that your product is starting to get stale with the times, and you're not evolving like the rest of us are. Eventually, they're going to get tired of seeing the same old dog shit every fucking day. Every fucking week, I should say. But nonetheless, 617 days of being champion, the Universal Champion. 617 days plus. A 6-man tag team match is the main event, where Drew McIntyre, Randy Orton, and Matt Riddle, who collectively are known as RK Bro, Randy Orton and Matt Riddle, that is, who are the Raw Tag Team Champions. Roman Reigns, who is your Universal Champion. Roman Reigns, who is your WWE Champion. Jimmy Uso, who is one half of the SmackDown Tag Team Champions, and Jey Uso, who is one half of the SmackDown Tag Team Champions. This was a decent match. It was pretty good for a multi-man match. Now, I was talking about, on a previous broadcast, I'd talked about the fact that AEW has this problem with too many multi-man matches. This one doesn't exactly fit the mold of being too many multi-man matches, because if you look at this, every other match on this card, Rollins versus Rhodes. What's that? What's that you say? That's a singles match. No titles on the line. Nope. No real implications? Okay. Well, I mean, we could do that. Lashley versus Omos. What's that you say? They could have very well been on the pre-show. No one really benefits from this rivalry. What's that you say? Every other match except for this 6-man tag match is a singles match? Yeah. So why couldn't they just have Drew McIntyre face off against Roman Reigns and it just be something like with Randy Orton in Drew McIntyre's corner and with the Bloodline in Roman Reigns' corner? Or the Usos, not the Bloodline. The Bloodline is, of course, all three of them collectively. Because the Usos are just the Usos together, but the Bloodline is Roman Reigns, Jimmy Uso, and Jey Uso collectively. This match, I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. I don't know if I've already said that. And it's 40 fucking minutes. From entrances to the time that the bell rings, it's a 40-minute main event. Why? Why would you have that? Like, literally, I was looking at the timestamp on Hulu, and it was like, the event itself was like 2 hours and 50 minutes. So it was like at the 2 hour and 12-minute mark. And then I was like, 50 fucking minutes. Or 40 minutes, rather. Just to get an ending that wasn't even that good. Roman Reigns ends up tagging himself in off of one of the Uso brothers. I think Jimmy. And afterwards he ends up... He doesn't even win in a strong way, though, like a strong fashion that makes him look like a strong champion. He ends up just punching Matt Riddle in the face, and afterwards covering the man. 1, 2, 3, roll credits. That's all she wrote, you know? After everyone else gets their crap in, you know, and tries to basically sell us a pay-per-view that's not even halfway any good. I mean, this pay-per-view itself, had some pretty good matches. The best match is the I Quit match between Charlotte and Ronda Rousey. Oh, I guess I forgot to say this, but she says, Happy Mother's Day, Ronda. And what ends up happening is Charlotte steps through with her arm through the chair. I'm not really sure why, what she was reaching for. Like, Ronda was on the other side of the chair, and Charlotte tries to reach over with the chair. And whenever she does, she gets caught in an armbar, and she basically hyperextends Charlotte's arm. Whenever she does, she says, she basically looks at Charlotte and then says, ask her, referring to the ref to ask her if she quits or not. Whenever she does ask her if she quits, whatever reason, Ronda ends up asking the referee if Charlotte quits, and Charlotte ends up saying, no, never, go to hell. And whenever Charlotte says that, Ronda says, I was hoping you'd say that, bitch. And she hyperextends this girl's arm. And afterwards, Charlotte screams, I quit, I quit, I quit. Like, she's begging for mercy, which in the grand scheme of things, now that you know that her arm is broke, figuring that out later was kind of a shock. But this was the best match, was the SmackDown Women's Championship match, where Sasha Banks, where's Charlotte Flair is right there. What am I talking about? Where's Sasha Banks, though? I want to hold up a sign that says, we want Banks outside of WWE corporate. And then after that, I'm going to interchange it with, on the other side of that sign, it's going to say, where's Bliss? Because I want Alexa Bliss, I don't want to see Madcap Moss face off against... Why would I want to see Madcap Moss face off against Happy Corbin? That makes no sense. Like, the wrestling was really good. The match that they put on wasn't half bad. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. It was decent, but it wasn't like any other wrestling match that I've seen over the past few years. Seth Rollins versus Cody Rhodes, I wanted to give it 4 out of 5 stars, but I had so many problems doing so. First off, I can't really buy the fact that this was the opening contest. Why is this the opening contest? Do you want to know what the opening contest should have been now that we've got some time to talk about it? I guess I'll just go ahead and do what I did, rehash the first idea that I had that I thought was going to take me 20 minutes, because it did on the first broadcast. Lashley versus Omos should have been the first match, and Rollins versus Rhodes would have been the co-main event. But it wouldn't have happened. It would have been the second co-main event. So the I Quit match would have been before the 6-man tag match, and for that matter, the 6-man tag match wouldn't be a 6-man tag match, because that's not where that goes. It would have been just a singles match where Roman Reigns would have faced off against Drew McIntyre, where they would have each had one person in their corner. Roman could have had Paul Heyman in his corner. Roman could have had either Jimmy and or Jay in his corner. Or maybe Drew would have had both Randy and Matt Riddle in his corner. It wouldn't have mattered, but there would have been someone in someone's corner. Take a shot every time I say the word corner. Nonetheless, what I mean to say is, it would have been a one-on-one match. It wouldn't have been this 6-man tag team bullshit would not exist. It's like giving me a taste of the food that I enjoy and then eating it right in front of me. Don't do that. AJ Styles versus Edge, I would have kept Damian Priest out of the picture, and I would have kept it the same as it was at WrestleMania. This all started whenever Edge decided it was a good idea to come into the ring and then talk about how he wanted that last gasp of air that he's been dying for since he's come to the WWE. He has yet to have his time in the sun. He's just basically saying that he wants one last 5-star match, and AJ Styles basically answered his open contest. And then all of a sudden, there's this. I told AJ at WrestleMania he was going to meet his Judgment Day. Pun intended, because him and Damian Priest are now a collective group known as Judgment Day. Yay, everybody go crazy. No, I'm not going crazy, because that's uncalled for. Whenever you say that he was going to meet his, quote, Judgment Day, you should have just meant like, hey, you know, I beat you, I'm done with you, I'm through with you, roll credits. But instead, you had to go and muddy up the waters. It couldn't have been about respect. It had to be about some bullshit. Nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, I think, seeing as though that I've talked about everything that I've had on my notes here, what I wanted to do was watch a 40-minute broadcast of AEW. Not a 40-minute match, or a 40-minute main event, rather. A 40-minute broadcast of AEW. I suppose that we'll do that next week. We'll see what they've got going on, because I can watch them on YouTube. It's just, I fear that it won't be as good as the live show, because it's AEW Dark. Now, in AEW Dark, what they do is they take their less popular superstars and they give them time on pay-per-view, or not pay-per-view, on some platform wherever they're like, hey, here's what we got lined up for you, and then it's just boom, 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 bam, there you go. You just got that. Boom. There's another one. We're just throwing them at you like hotcakes, you know? I've never thrown a hot cake, so I wouldn't know. I've thrown horseshoes. I've thrown bowling balls, but I've never thrown a goddamn hot cake. Nonetheless, what I'm going to go ahead and do now is I'm going to go ahead and wrap this show up. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, so much for joining me. And this was a re-upload because the first upload got lost in the sand somewhere, because no matter where I looked for it on my computer, I could not find it. I'm going to make sure to save this one to my desktop so that I can find it really, really easy. And that is a wrap.